none of what he says is going to work. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Aoun's already in huge trouble right now in Lebanon because he's sold out. I mean, Israel and the United States came to him and got him to basically surrender the sovereignty of Lebanon, because what he said, if you remember, Hezbollah's whole argument was we are a legitimate resistance movement so long as Israel illegally occupies Lebanese territory. And I do believe that part of the solution that was brokered is that the Lebanese government said, we give Israel permission to occupy. So it's no longer an illegal occupation. Therefore, they sought to delegitimize Hezbollah's moral posture. Nobody bought that. Nobody bought that. He's lost the Lebanese people have lost faith in this man. So I don't know what Trump thinks he's trying to accomplish here. This is, Barak, the ambassador of Turkey, American ambassador to Turkey, who's now apparently the special envoy of all chaos in the region.
Tom Barak.
This is his idea, but it's simplistic in nature. It's not grounded in reality. The reality is Hezbollah is a force that's staying. And the other thing about Jolani is he can't beat Hezbollah. His forces would go into Lebanon, and now you have an Arab state invading an Arab state, but now you've turned this into a Sunni Shia thing. And it will spin out of control and get ugly really quick. It's not going to be more, it's going to be mass slaughter. Becomes the kind of sectarian warfare that will produce, entire villages being eradicated, women and children, old people. And I think Jolani understands it because he's not saying he wants to do this. I think he's saying the opposite. I don't have any intention of doing this, because he's not stupid. He understands. And two, I mean, what happens when you get a vacuum? Who fills that vacuum? And when Jolani fails, and he will fail, Turkey steps in. And Israel doesn't want Turkey any closer to its, to its borders. So I don't think Israel's in favor of this. This is Donald Trump living in a Tom Barak-inspired fantasy world, where none of the things he talks about are achievable. None of them will happen. That's just the reality of it. But again, I have to think, because the outcomes of everything he says are so predictable, that he knows this. Chaos. He likes chaos. He wants to create chaos, and he will manage that chaos. And he'll be successful in doing this until what's time people stop looking to the United States for solutions. I mean, this is the state of play. Right now, America continues to enjoy the status of global hegemon. We are the most powerful nation in the world. We still have the ability to influence the world in ways. But half of this now is because people are trained they're conditioned to accept this without question. But at some point in time, people are going to start to question. Well, what if we say no? And see, this is where Iran standing up and prevailing is a big deal, because people become so accustomed to the United States intimidating people and getting to back down. And, even our losses, Afghanistan came after, 2 decades of just devastation. Only academics cheer the American demise in Afghanistan. Realists, the people on the ground, all they know is suffering, and the suffering continues. Chaos. What did we gain from leaving Afghanistan? Chaos. And we thrive in chaos. This is the whole American approach today, because chaos exists in conditions. If you're trying to impose your will on something, you may not have sufficient power to do that. All you have to do is generate chaos and then manage the chaos. And you manage the chaos as long as enough people believe that you are the source of the answer to the chaos, and ignore the fact that you caused the chaos to begin with. And what we need right now, for instance, when the Lebanese people wake up and realize that the United States offers nothing at all, they'll look elsewhere for the solutions to their problems. And I think that's the direction we're heading. And again, when people start starving to death, people are going to start realizing that the United States doesn't have a solution to any of these problems. Nothing. What problem has Donald Trump solved? Nothing. He just creates chaos. I mean, the one problem he solved, I guess, is his economic position at home. The most corrupt man in the world, manipulates markets based upon social media posts that are timed to generate, deviations in the world, oil market. I guess you could say that's a success. The American economy is failing. I mean, you can prop it up artificially, but again, there's only so much fakery that can go around before reality sets in. But Trump doesn't care. He only cares about the next 2 years. He only cares about, his legacy, his personal legacy. He's not a good American president. He's a horrible American president because he's destroying the country to preserve his legacy. It's a sad state of affairs, but chaos seems to be the answer for just about everything. Why is Donald Trump doing this? If what he's doing creates chaos, you now know the answer. It's easier to manage chaos than it is to impose your will on a problem where you lack the resources to succeed.
The war in Ukraine, Scott, continues to get more complicated with not in the eyes of Russians. They basically see the same thing is happening. They're trying to deal with the drones, but in the eyes of those people, decision makers in Washington, they're trying to make some sort of move to show Russia they're trying to do something. On the other hand, you see nothing practically is coming out of Washington with the case of Ukraine. And here is what Donald Trump said about Russia and Ukraine.
That the war between Russia and Ukraine will end during your administration?
I think so. I thought it would have ended before.
What's the roadblock?
Easiest, because I got along with both leaders. I thought it would have been my easiest.
What have you told Russian President Putin about ending this war?
I tell him the same thing all the time. I don't want to go into great detail, but I say, Vladimir, it's time for you to stop. It's time for this war to end.
What does he say to you?
I think he's ready to make a deal.
When?
Soon. Takes two to tango. But I think he's ready to make a deal.
There will be no deal. I mean, Donald Trump lives in a fantasy world. But again, what is the purpose of this fantasy? We got to break this down. Let's be clear about something. There is no chance for a NATO-driven Ukrainian military victory over Russia. It's not happening. This whole drone thing, it's real. I mean, drones exist. Don't get me wrong. I was there. I know. They're real. They cause pain. There's no doubt about that. The Russians acknowledge it. Vladimir Putin says, "Yeah, this hurts. This is a thing." But there's no panic in Russia right now. The people aren't panicked at all. I can just tell you, there's no. I mean, there's a handful of Western liberal elites who, apparently pick up the phone and call Gilbert Doctorow on occasion, and they're panicking, and Gilbert's panicking, everybody's panicking. But there's no panic in Russia, none whatsoever. Scott, what about Karaganov and Solovyov? I mean, because, Gilbert watches Solovyov apparently and takes his key from him. You do know about Russian TV. It's like all other TV. It's entertainment. Okay. I respect Vladimir Solovyov. I know him. I'm friendly with him. But I think if I were in a bar with him and we could talk without people listening, he'd admit that a lot of what he does, I mean, he believes in the main message, but you have to create controversy because people have to tune in. It's about viewership. If you don't get viewership, you go out of business. When you attract millions of followers, they're attracted to a certain messaging. And if you start to say, well, no, we're going to become rational and boring. This is what happened to me. I stopped talking about Israel. People are like, well, you're not talking about Israel being a Zionist entity anymore, and I lose followers. Okay, I don't care. I mean, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to inform you. People want to be entertained. And Solovyov provides entertainment. RT has to do. Look, I was at St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. I mean, I respect RT. I respect what they do. But, when you go there, they have a death mask wall. It's entertainment. They had a bowling alley. Entertainment. They have to have program. Rick Sanchez, who's a good friend of mine, I respect him. He can't come on and just do a boring, okay, now Rick Sanchez has to have a persona that is, it's genuine, but it's done for the purpose of attracting viewership, keeping viewership. You can have one successful show, but if you don't have the next successful show and the next success, so what happens in Russian TV is they have a cadre of people. Believe it or not, I have a phone full of Russian producers. Full of them. They call me all the time. They want me to do this and the other thing. 70% of the time I say, no, that's not my thing. No, I'm not comfortable with that. No, I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to come on and generate excitement. I'll come on and talk about the things that I can talk about, things that I have information about. I have insights that I feel are valuable. But, they want me to come on and talk about UFOs, so they can say, well, former intelligence officer came on and talked about UFOs. No, not doing that. Not my thing. We want you to talk about, the assassination attempt against somebody in Monaco. I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to put my name behind that. And as a result, I'm a pauper. I don't make money. That's okay with me. These people, that's how they earn a living. And I respect the fact that people earn a living. I'm not denigrating that at all. Maybe if I was more of an information whore, I could have a Lamborghini instead of a Mazda. But, that's just the way the game's played. But Russian media is full of people who are brought onto a show like The Big Game or something because they're there to play a role. It might be a role that they believe in, but if they're going to bring me on, because I've been on all those shows, I don't go in there playing a game. I go in to talk, but then I'll bring a foil. I'll talk, and then somebody comes, well, that's crazy. And the other person, well, that's insane. And, well, this and that. And, well, he's an American spy. Whoa, 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 whoa. And the audience is going, wow. Awesome, dude. Keep it up. Yeah, this is entertaining. They're not really listening to what's being said. And so to sit there and say that Russia's falling apart because there's a spectrum of Russian information out there saying, we believe Russia should nuke Europe. We should believe it. And we think Putin needs to do X, Y, and Z. Who cares? The only question you have to ask is, what is Vladimir Putin saying and doing? Because that's the only thing that matters. That's it. And he is as calm as the day is long. He's not panicked. I interviewed Dmitry Rogozhin. He's the former head of Roscosmos. Today, he commands a unit called BARS Sarmat. BARS, B-A-R-S, is a Russian term, sort of an abbreviation for like active reserves. Each military district had BARS units where veterans, would come in and organize, and if needed, they could be mobilized into a unit and then sent in. And if you take a look at the order of battle of units, you have a whole bunch of BARS units in there because every military district is activated, and some of the BARS units are volunteer units. BARS Sarmat is a volunteer unit. Sarmat, name of the missile. I guess when he was with Roscosmos, he was also involved in the development group for the Sarmat missile. But he does drones right now. BARS Sarmat has a giant facility outside of Melitopol. I can say that because it's public information. I'm not giving away anything. The Ukrainians have already attacked it. And his unit's also a combat unit. They're out in the front lines. So now you have drone operators who are operating the front lines, getting the information about drone warfare, both in terms of how they operate, but how the Ukrainians operate. They collect the debris of Ukrainian drones shot down or brought down. They take it back to BARS Sarmat Research Center, and they go through the debris. They learn lessons, reconfigure, and they go off. It's a cycle. I went to the Archangels drone research unit. They do the same thing. They have frontline units. They have a research center. They feed back and forth. Both at BARS Sarmat and at Archangels, there's no panic at all. What I got from people was, yeah, this is a tough time right now. Ukrainians are full press, full court press, doing a lot of stuff. But yeah, we understand what they're doing. We understand how they're doing it. And we're coming up with the response. And there's a technological response, and then there's the harsh reality of war. The best way Russia responds isn't to shoot down the drones, although they're shooting down almost all the drones. Less than 10% of the drones get through. People need to understand that. But the best defense is to destroy the means of production, which Russia is doing. Lindsey Graham infamously toured a major drone facility, and it went boom shortly thereafter. And you can draw your own conclusions. I think there was an OPSEC failure on the part of Lindsey Graham's team. They published photographs they shouldn't have published. The Russians have taken command of AI-generated command and control, which means that they have mastered ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance of the entirety of the battlefield. They have a huge database of imagery, and as things happen, as photos show up, it's being assessed, looked at, generates a location, people evaluate it. If they determine that's correct, they send a resource on it, and there are cases where they can locate an enemy, a Ukrainian drone command center, and within 30 minutes, they'll have 3 Fab 500 bombs put on it, killing everybody inside. And this is what they're doing. They're killing 80 to 100 Ukrainian drone operators a day. 80 to 100 Ukrainian drone operators a day. Drone operator takes 4 weeks to train basic skills. Takes another 6 months to develop till you become combat proficient. The people that are operating in the command centers on the front lines at the brigade level and supported battalions are the best drone operators out there, and they're dying 80 to 100 a day. A day. This is the reality. Starlink, which controls these drones, is being shut down sector by sector by sector. Russia has solved these problems. Russia is doing quite well. But that's not what you're hearing in the West. You're hearing in the West about how it's drone superiority, everything's going great. Do you honestly think that Ukraine is going to assemble a single Patriot missile? The answer is no. And yet everybody's pushing the license. Even if the license went through in peacetime, they're not going to have that ready for at least 2 years. But it's wartime, which means they're never going to have it ready. And yet everybody's selling this as the next big thing. Donald Trump is blowing smoke up everybody's butt, pretending that Vladimir Putin is not looking for a deal at all. He's done with deals. He's looking for victory. And he said it. Donald Trump should listen, but Donald Trump knows this. See, Donald Trump's playing the game. Everybody in Europe, NATO, Ukraine, the United States knows that Russia's winning this war. They know that. But because people like Gilbert Doctorow say there's an element within Russia that's going to take Putin out, Putin's vulnerable. September 20th, my God, United Russia might get swept from the Duma. Then what happens to Putin? There'll be people rioting in the streets. The army could launch a coup d'etat, move to power, because they did that against Gorbachev. Went against Gorbachev. And Yeltsin, remember 1993? The tanks in the streets. This is Putin's future. What horse hockey, what garbage, what stupidity these guys are talking about. The army is solidly behind Vladimir Putin. The Russian people are solidly behind Vladimir Putin. There's an element of Russian society, I don't know, 10% maybe, of people who continue to harbor dreams of Western liberal elites, like Ksenia Sobchak does that. And then there's a larger percentage of conservative people that want more action. And that message gets echoed in the Solovyov chambers and then echoed by what Gilbert Doctorow is doing is on purpose, by the way. I mean, he's not stupid. You know he's not stupid, but it's on purpose. He knows that he's echoing a distinct minority. And what's the purpose of the echo? To take it, throw it out into Western society, and echo it back in. Why? Because, and this is the real thing, all these people who know that Russia's winning the war, they've bought into the notion that Russia is vulnerable, that you can get a Gorbachev situation, that you can get a Yeltsin situation. And they cite the Wagner revolt of June 2023 as evidence. We can develop these fractures. What we have to do is get the Russian people to stop believing in Russia. Get the Russian people to doubt Vladimir Putin. We have to create the perception of the infallibility, or no, of the fallibility of Vladimir Putin. And so that's what they're doing. Donald Trump knows that everything he's saying is a lie. What he's banking on is that the Russian people will lose faith. And September 20th is a critical date in this Western strategy. They want the Duma to be lost to Putin. And then what, they're going to repeat Kerensky, or they're going to repeat 2005, 2017, 1905, 1970. Who knows what they're trying to repeat in Russian history? All these non-Russian historians going back, desperately grasping for some sort of historical precedent to say, this is what's going to happen. And they're looking for a Moscow Maidan. That's it. They're looking for a Moscow Maidan. They're looking for masses of people in the street to remove Vladimir Putin, because that's the only chance they have. Okay. Look at everything. The coalition of the unwilling, or the willing, got gathered together. I mean, look at the leaders that are gathering there, the big three. Macron. Marine Le Pen just got cleared to run for president. She's going to be the next president of France. April 18th of next year, she's getting elected next president of France. Well, she's got a monitoring collar on her. Donald Trump was a convicted felon, and he was able to exploit that and say that it was politically motivated. This is the biggest political gift that the courts gave her. They said you can run, but you got to keep a monitoring tape. She's like, political oppression from the Macron elites, and her party's going to rally around her, and all the people who hate what Macron's doing. She's the next president. You think she's going to stand there next to Zelensky and go, yeah, we're going to give you everything? No. You think she's going to tell the Finns, yeah, we're sending Rafaels with nuclear weapons? No. France, remove it from the board, it's gone. Merz is history. He's got zero popularity rating. His government may fail at any moment because while he's out there giving away the farm to Ukraine, his economy is collapsing. Businesses are closing down. There could be a vote of no confidence soon. And alternative for Deutschland is hanging there in the wings. You think they're going to sit there and say, give everything to Zelensky. This is a good deal. And then there, of course, is our good friend Starmer. Keir Starmer. Now, he's history. He's already quit. We don't know who's replacing. Maybe that dude from Manchester. And he might continue. But continue what? The British are a literal joke. There is nothing serious about Great Britain. Nothing serious about them at all. They can bring on all the former generals and MI6 people to talk about how Putin loses sleep over Great Britain's independent nuclear deterrence, but they don't remind that the totality of the United Kingdom's nuclear submarines are in dock being repaired because they've disregarded maintenance because of budget cuts. That you take the totality of the British military, put it into one of these World Cup soccer stadiums, you have 30,000 unsold seats. We can put more people in a soccer stadium than England can put on a battlefield, and we're supposed to take them seriously. None of this is serious. This is all fake. Look at every single military exercise that's taking place. None of them are taking place on the scope and scale necessary to pose a threat. I was alive in the day when we did Reforger, the reinforcement of forces in Germany. We had 250,000 American troops already in Germany, ready to fight on a moment's notice, and we had 300,000 more that come flying in to reinforce within 10 days. 10 days after notification, troops would be flown in, marrying up with equipment already maintained, armed, everything, going out to fight and That's what a genuine war-fighting military exercise looks like. To have, Operation Tenderfoot 34, where you have 5 guys come in and pretend they're doing something, that's not a real military exercise. Until you exercise the logistics, until you show me that you can actually gin up 75,000 troops to send to Ukraine and sustain them with logistics over the course of 6 months to a year, you're a joke, and Europe is a joke. The German military can't do anything it wants to do. Pistorius published a white paper, War by 2029. How are you going to do that? We're going to build a 500,000 strong army. I think it's 400 some odd thousand. How are you going to do that? Because you only got 148,000. They're not going to volunteer. Pistorius, they already told you 60% of them said even if Russia invades, they're not going to fight for you. The military men in Germany, they don't believe in you. They don't believe in what you've become. They're not going to do it. We're going to draft. You want to see how quick the German government collapses? Start drafting. It's all a joke. It's all a facade. None of it's real. The only thing that's real is that Russia's slaughtering the Ukrainians. Russia's advancing in a consistent fashion on a very dangerous battlefield. And Russia has a solution to every problem that anybody brings up. Russia has lost no strategic initiative. What about the oil fields, Scott? Aren't they getting blown up? Again, my good friend Gilbert Doctor, and I say good friend in quotation because I despise the man. I'm driven to my belief because of the attack against the Samara oil field. Wow. Well, what about that cause a problem for you, Gilbert? They hit it with a drone. Yeah, they've been hitting with the drone for several years now. It's not the first time. In fact, if you look back, I think Samara was hit twice in 2025, 3 times in 2026. Each time it got repaired. Because the drones they're hitting with, Gilbert, they're FP1 drones. They're advanced German technology. No, they're not really. They're made out of plywood. They have a 2-stroke engine, 60 kilometers an hour, so Starlink can work. And when they hit, they have a 60-kilogram warhead that goes pop. Pop. Have you looked at how oil facilities are constructed? Because we're talking about a lot of heat, a lot of pressure. That means we're talking about pipes with fittings and rivets and the whole thing. Pop. It could cause a hiccup. You see some flame, there's a leakage flame. I'm trained as an oil field firefighter, by the way, just so everybody understands that. I took my firefighting days seriously, and I went to the academy in Nevada, and I've done it. I've put out oil fires. I put out big tank fires. I put out the little fires. I know what it needs to be done. And so do the people who work on the oil fields. And they go in there and they put the fire out. They shut down the supply. They let it burn out. They smother it with things. Then they go in, they do an evaluation. They replace the parts that are broken. Oil fields require constant maintenance, by the way. And so they do have a bunch of replacement parts. And they come in. And generally what happens is about a week or so later, the oil field's back up and running. This is the reality of it. But Dr. O turned it into a symbol of the vulnerability of Russia to these advanced German drones that don't exist, by the way. They're in the example he said, the New York Times talked about a secret facility that's producing advanced German drones that are going to destroy the Russian energy infrastructure. Did you read the article? HF-1 drones, a small tactical drone. 4,000 were provided by the Ukrainian by Germans in 2024 to Ukrainians. In 2025, about 2,000 were used. Well, when I say used, the problem is they have a high 80% failure to launch rate. And so the rest of the 2,000 are in the warehouse because the Ukrainians refuse to use them because they don't work. They're AI. AI doesn't work. There's 3 categories of AI for these drones. They don't work. They don't work. But they replaced them with the new X something 2, which it's an advanced German drone, except it's an analog of the Russian Landsat that's been in place since 2020. It was used in the Ukraine in 2020. So it's basically a copy of a Russian drone that now is 4 years old in combat duration. It's not better than the Russian drone. It uses that same AI. And you know who won't use this new X drone in combat? Ukrainians. 75% launch failure. Remember when I told you about dead Ukrainian drone operators? If you make a mistake as a Ukrainian drone operator, because you're under constant surveillance, you will sit there. The way the drone war works is you sit there and you evaluate what your enemy is doing. I got this from the Russians because Ukrainians are pretty good too. If the Russians make a mistake, they get killed. I interviewed a guy, I'm writing an article about it right now. He's been wounded, 12 times in the last 2 years. He screwed up because he got detected. And bam, and he got wounded, pulled out, put back, put in. This is the reality of it. Except the Ukrainians, when they hit, they're hitting with other drones, maybe some artillery. When the Russians hit, they're hitting with Iskanders, with Fab 500s. They're vaporizing whoever's in there. But if you make a mistake, you die. So you're sitting there in your command post, and now you need to launch. All right, well, drones come, because everything that's in the command post has to be brought in. So you don't bring in a fully assembled drone. You bring a drone in a carrying case. And it's there, you bring it in. Now you have to there's some setup that has to happen. Drones use batteries, so you have to get the right battery configuration based on the mission you're doing. You have to evaluate the electronic warfare system to see which frequency you're going to use, or make sure you have the right fiber optic reel on there for the length that you want, or make sure that you have the right SIM cards in if you're going to use some sort of satellite generated internet communications. It depends what package you're doing, what mission you're doing. It just does. You don't just launch a drone; you get it prepared. So you prepare all this stuff, and now you have to take it out and you have to assemble it on the launcher. This is a moment of vulnerability. If the enemy sees you, they're going to kill you because it doesn't matter that you launch and go back into your hide site. That hide site will be evaporated. So you have to find a window where the enemy's blind, where the enemy's not looking. These windows aren't very big. And so now you go out there with your drone and you click on the wings and you put it on there and you test everything. Everything's up. Make sure you got the signal good. Launch. And it doesn't launch. Now you got a problem. You got to troubleshoot it. Launch. Doesn't launch. You're dead. You just died. Now, and the thing is, you're not dead yet, but you know you're going to die. You know you have no choice. It's automatic that you're going to die because the Russians have seen you. And other Russians are going to kill you. And so you can go back in and you can try and dig in and hide, but it doesn't matter because 3 Fab 500s are coming in, thermobaric, they're going to suck the blood. I mean, you're dead. And the Ukrainians are tired of dying. And so they said, we don't want the drone. This is what Gilbert Doctorow doesn't understand. The reality of war. The reality of war. The Russians are winning this war because the Russians are better than the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have very good people, but they're dying. They're dying in droves. And they can't be replaced. They can't be replaced. Their best drone operators, the ones I interviewed from the Russians, started out as reconnaissance guys. They're reconnaissance soldiers. Then they were also stormtroopers. They were the guys that did the assaults early on in the special military operation. They were the reconnaissance guys, these reconnaissance groups, or the assault guys, who basically sat there and said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And the drone was the better way. And so these guys with extreme tactical acumen went back and learned how to fly drones and then apply drones to the reality of war. They understand everything. They understand. I'll give you an example. They were shown to me a Ukrainian drone command center. Well, they didn't know it. It just looked like another tree thing because AI says these are the places we believe would make good command centers because you have to look at things such as, if you got a group of trees here, is there a place you can run cable out to put your antennas up there? Because once you start broadcasting, But you can't put your antenna there because I know now that antenna is going to be within a certain cable distance. So I have to put a retransmission antenna out there. I have to send the enemy looking in this direction. And I have several retransmission centers out there. So when they blow up one, I can ship to the other and ship to the other. There's thought goes in this, but the Russians use AI to sit there and map it out and go, pattern of life, how does this work? They know that guys are carrying stuff in. So how do you approach a place? What are you looking for? Signs. You're looking for, grass bent over when people walk through the grass. Because, a squad of 5 guys with a lot of weight going through back to each other because there's mines out there. You got to walk, you create a path. You can't do that because if you create the path, the drone collects it, tracks you in, and kills you. So the Russians are out there looking for everything. You have to bring everything out. If you bring it in, it comes out. And you can't leave any trace. What happened was a Ukrainian was hydrating, meaning drinking water. Because when you do this command center, you're there for 14 days. You're in the same place for 14 days. They don't maneuver around. They're there. Now, when you're drinking water, you drink it, and you're supposed to dispose of it in a trash bin. Because in the end of the day, you're going to bag it up and bring it out. But after 10 days, you get a little lazy, a little complacent. And apparently, he sat there and he drank his bottle and threw it at the trash bin. It bounced off the lid, off the rim, and rolled out from underneath the foliage. And the Russians got it. And the Russian operator, because they have banks, these guys go, what happens is that they're there and the AI goes, boom, pops an image up because the AI detected this. Boom. The guy looks at it, goes, shit, water bottle. Where, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we got a confirmed water bottle. Did you check when it was there? It wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Got a water bottle. Okay. What do you think? I think there's a guy hiding in this thing. Okay, you think it's commanded? Yeah. What do you want? 3 Fab 500s. Over here, you got Su-34 circling already in the air. And they go, hey, we got a target for you. Give them the coordinates. They drop. 5 minutes later, everybody's dead because some idiot didn't get up and put the water bottle in the trash can. This is drone warfare. It's real. And the Russians are better at it than the Ukrainians.
Yeah. Thank you for comprehensive answer because there were a lot of speculation about what Russia is doing, what's going on in Ukraine. I think you described it the best way for our audience.
But I just want to let the audience know, look, the Ukrainians are good too. I was in Starbelsk, where the college that got hit. Apparently there were Ukrainian stay-behinds. And that's a reality in Lugansk. And then the Ukrainians call Russians that stay in the villages zhdun, the waiters. And it's not a complimentary term. But the Ukrainians have their own zhdun. These are people who didn't leave when the Russians took over, who have retained connectivity with the Ukrainian intelligence services. And their job is to sit there and report. And they will, they have drone capabilities. So apparently some zhdun saw that I was in Starbelsk. And they launched 2 drones. The drones were brought down by what I believe is electronic countermeasures. And they crashed and they blew up about 150 yards away. But we had to be evacuated because now we're actively being targeted. This is the reality. Ukrainians are blowing stuff up. On the way to Starbelsk, on the way to Korlovka, on the way to other places, you see the blown up gas stations, the blown up trucks, the blown up cars. They're killing a lot of civilians, hundreds of civilians. And they're blowing up a lot of infrastructure. There can be no doubt about that. My convoy that left Melitopol, we didn't start as a convoy, but we ended up joining a convoy. We were attacked by Hornet drones. They had to be shot down by the gun trucks. The convoy. It's real. I'm not pretending the Ukrainians aren't doing anything. They're doing everything. I couldn't go to Kherson because the Ukrainians had turned the highway connecting Melitopol to Kherson into the highway of death, literally. So no one's sitting here saying the Ukrainians aren't doing anything. The day I arrived in St. Petersburg, 96 drones were launched against St. Petersburg. The day I left, I think 93 drones were launched. The day I arrived in Moscow in the middle of June, 555 drones were launched against Moscow. The day I left, my flight was delayed out of Vnukovo because of a drone attack. I missed my connection in Istanbul. The reality of drones is real. I'm not saying that this isn't happening. I'm saying it's not having the impact on Russia that the West claims it is. There is no panic. The Russians have a solution to everything. The Russians are smarter than you think. There's a drone unit in Russia called Rubicon. And initially, when I put this trip together, I was given permission to interview Rubicon. But because of the sensitivity of the situation where Rubicon is the #1 killer of Ukrainian drone operators, which means now Rubicon is actively being hunted by the Ukrainians, and the Russians said, we can't let you touch Rubicon because of the sensitivities, because a mistake could be made. I could throw a water bottle and it gets detected by a Ukrainian ISR. I could make a comment that gets overheard or whatever. It's just too sensitive because this is a very delicate situation. The Russians are doing things, but that doesn't give the Russians latitude to screw up. And with Rubicon, they're going to take no chances. So I didn't get to do the interviews or the visits I wanted with Rubicon because it was deemed to be, operationally unsound. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm sitting there saying the Russians are doing all this. There's not a problem. Oh, this is one of the hardest problems in the world. And if the Russians screw up, the Russians die, and the Ukrainians are killing Russians who do screw up. It's just the reality of it. But what I'm trying to impart is that this notion of this overwhelming Ukrainian drone presence that's demoralizing the Russians, crippling the Russians, is an outright lie. Russia is in 100% control of the situation. It's going the way Russia wants it to go. It's a very, very hard situation. A very hard situation where if Russia makes a mistake, they die. And Russia makes a lot of mistakes. So there's a lot of dead Russians. Not 35,000, but there's a lot of dead Russians. It's a hard war. But there's no panic whatsoever. I've never saw people more confident in my life than the Russian drone operators that I interviewed. These people they understood the threats. They took it seriously. They've been blown up. They're probably going to get blown up again. But they believe in their cause. They believe in their capabilities. And they're confident in victory. And everybody I spoke to was confident in victory. Not the irrational confidence of Donald Trump, but the rational confidence of people who have been fighting this war, not for 4 years, but for 12 years, because the vast majority of the people there have been fighting this conflict in one way or another since 2014.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott.